Okay, good evening and welcome everyone. It's 7 o'clock, so we're getting started. And I want to welcome you all to this special webinar this evening, interactive, because I want you to put your questions in here, where I've got a great chance to meet Jo Pitkin, who took the live stream webcast with us back in 2022 and qualified as a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist, or I'm not sure what professional title she gives herself, so we're going to find out. But Jo, I think, gave, from what I heard, a real superstar performance on Celia Griever's setting up your therapy practice sessions that she runs once a month on Sunday evenings, I think, in our professional membership hub for those who are already qualified. And people love that. And I heard a lot about it. So messages came back saying, let's do a more public event on that. So I've done that, and I know some of you are taking the training course and running through it. Some of you are maybe already qualified, about to set up your practice. Some of you already in practice for a while, and some of you are thinking about training in this approach. I want to welcome you all this evening to this webinar. We're going to be going probably for about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit longer than that. So if you do allow for 2 hours, I think you'll really enjoy the journey here. Because, yeah, I'm going to get a chance to interview in detail Jo Pitkin. And Jo, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's
Jo,
lovely to see you again. You were teaching me last time I saw you.
yeah, I know it's kind of sad that we don't get to kind of get together more, both even on remotely like this, but actually in person would be great too. So, Jo, you're connecting with us from, where are you in the country? Let everyone know.
So I'm in a little village in Wiltshire, just outside of Salisbury, so think Stonehenge.
Okay. And that's your place of permanent residence, and you've been there a
Uh,
while, yeah?
yep, so I'm in my therapeutic room, minus the dog, because I do usually have a dog in with me. But yeah, I operate from here and I work online around the world as well.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to have a chance to ask Jo lots of questions about her therapy practice and how she promotes it. But first of all, I want to dive in. Well, first, let me introduce myself, because some of you might be seeing me for the first time. My name is Mark Davis, and I'm the director and principal at the UK College of Hypnosis and Hypnotherapy. And Yeah, I was one of several of our trainers, because we have a whole team of trainers running the live stream webcast event back in 2022. I can't remember who else was in that group there, Jo, but as soon as you say some names, I'll remember the whole group. But Jo did say that she was one of the real chatty ones, asking questions all the time. We make
Yeah,
note of these ones. We go and we pass messages along the next day. Watch out for Jo. She's
yeah.
really chatty.
Allow more time.
So yeah, I love teaching, I love training, but not just that. We're really focused on getting people qualified as well, because that's an extra effort you have to make. You attend the training course, a lot of fun, incredible transformational experience, learn so much. But then you want to follow through and get qualified and get the level 5 higher diploma in cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy awarded by NCFE. That takes quite a bit of extra effort after the main training. So I'll be asking Jo about that and how quickly she did that and how she got that. But then setting up in private practice. Setting up in private practice, not just setting up and launching your private practice, but being successful and really thriving and growing it and moving through the different phases, which are kind of, when you set up, you're not quite bringing enough money in, then you are bringing just enough money in to pay the bills and not be dipping into savings, and then you're making a profit, and then you're starting to get to the profit that you really want to get to in a period of time where you're actually generating a really the income that you want from this as a private therapy business. So that's the journey that I'm really excited to support people all the way through, because if people don't get the qualification, they don't get to set up a practice, they don't get to help people. If they set up a practice but they can't run it on a strongly profitable basis, they're not going to be helping people. Yeah. And they're not going to be. And so we want this whole thing to work where people are successful in private practice, helping hundreds of people each year, and also earning a reasonable good income doing that, and in control of their destiny. And I think that's an interesting theme we can look at as well. In this very topsy-turvy world with so many different things going on, when you really grasp what's on offer here in terms of learning valuable skills and then how to market and promote yourself and those services and skills to the market, which we can ask Jo whether she thinks the market is there and how big it is. And you understand how to do that, you will never go back to probably working for anybody else because you're in control of your destiny. Yeah. These outside forces are not, this market for helping with stress, anxiety, confidence, habit change, optimal performance, pain control, all these different things you can get into. And we'll ask Jo some of the areas she works in. It's under your control, how to get out there and do that. At least some of it. Of course, the economy goes up and down, but that's what we want to get into, is to understand how to really, just talking to Jo before this, actually really grasping and empowering yourself, because I think that's really important thing. So let's dive into this. That's what we're going to look at. First of all, I'm going to ask Jo about a little bit about her background, how she decided to get into this, what it was like taking the training course, getting qualified, etc. And then we'll talk about her starting her practice, but also this particular theme about promoting. And we talked about this, how to promote yourself to become the authority in your area. That was kind of the kind of the title. So this idea of promoting yourself to become the authority in your area. But even if you just qualified, could you do that authentically? Interesting question. That's what we'll dive into, right, Jo?
Oh, why not? Why not be the authority?
Why not be the authority? Fantastic. So let us rewind in time back to the year you were born. No, just before you decided to take the training course. So what were you doing? What's your background, professionally, anything educationally relevant for this sector? And then how do you decide to do it? What it was like?
So I worked in the third sector, in the charity sector, for 23 years. And I was always really fascinated by the psychology of giving, the idea that there's no such thing as true altruism, that everybody has different motivations for giving. And I always loved and I would be responsible for working with people that could give significant sums of money, so the high net worths. And so being able to understand them, their lives, their interests, their motivations was a key part of my research before I even got anywhere near them to even discuss money. And so then I knew that, actually, having been in that profession, that I was done. It was becoming a bit more of a chore, that I wasn't necessarily feeling as passionate for the causes that I was working for. And so it felt like a bit of a make or break. And I've always wanted to go into therapy, having been the recipient of a lot of therapy in my 20s. And back then, not that I'll ask you when you think my year of birth is, but it wasn't as simple as jumping online or social media or doing a Google search. It was very much a name in a book, so sadly I'm talking pre-internet. And so in order to find a therapist that I desperately needed, I'd have to think, oh, Helen in Southwest London sounds nice from her phone number. And so there was a lot of trial and error.
So we're talking the era of Yellow Pages.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so you had nothing to go on. So a lot of trial and error. And I tried so many different types of therapies, and actually spent far too long, almost 8 years, with a counsellor. And didn't get any further along, but was too polite, basically, to get myself out of it. And and then I found a CBT therapist in Norwood, and she changed everything in a session. She literally changed my life in a session. And as you do in any first session, you paint the picture, you lay out your table of problems. And she was quite harsh, and she said, "So what are you going to do about it? What do you want the rest of your life to look like?" And that had never come up, probably in the decade of therapy that I've had until that point. And so CBT really, really had an impact on me. But I also used a hypnotherapist as well. And I tried again a number of different styles of hypnotherapy, some that absolutely didn't work for me, but I still liked it in principle. It always interested me. And so I knew when I was looking for a career change that they were the two therapies that I wanted to
Okay.
work with, because I knew the power that they had. And then I found you guys.
Yeah, I'm sure if you type those two things in together, we probably came up because we've
Yeah,
always worked hard on coming up well in our Google search.
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was after Yellow Pages. So
Yeah, we're now in the internet.
so when was that? When were you so that would have been then how long?
2021.
2021. How long did it take you to decide? I mean, that's always an interesting question.
I think as soon as I saw and went through the website, looked at the for me a huge selling point was that a lot of I think pretty much all of the tutors were past students. And that really spoke to me
Oh,
as
really?
well, because you see that investment
Hmm.
and passion. And so that really, really spoke to me as well. But just this going through the structure of it and the mentoring side of things, and there was quite a lot for me to explore, which I was very grateful of, because I didn't want to have to guess or spend endless times going, can I just ask? What about this? It was all very much laid out for me.
Great. So yeah, okay. So but you were looking for that with the this idea of I want to train to be a therapist, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. This
And
is
and
absolutely what my plan was.
and had you looked at any other models of getting, training to be a counselor or
I did
because
I did
there are different pathways into sort of doing that psychological work, if you will, with people.
I did do my levels 2, 3, and 4 in counselling, just in the evenings, just to see. I knew that counselling wasn't what I wanted to end up doing, um, but I was doing it to just sort of assure myself that my interest was enough, because I hadn't studied since, I mean, I was 21 many,
Okay,
many
okay,
years ago. So I didn't know if I was even capable of it. I was a working mum. And
okay.
at that point, my daughter was 5. I didn't know if I had the mental capacity to learn at that point. So I sort of was dipping my toe in the water.
I mean, I'm interested that you had this experience with counseling where it went on for a long time, didn't go somewhere. Then you met somebody CBT, and they clearly asked this, what I'm going to call this pivotal kind of
Was
self-responsibility question, which is about, well, what are you going to do? You're the only one who's responsible for what's going to happen next. What are you going to do about it? And that this self-responsibility is the pivot point in therapy, and they just nailed that with in the opening session question with you. But then you went on.
pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal, but well, yeah, but it's great because it's like suddenly you're confronted with
Mhm.
that question. But then you went off and did a whole bunch of counseling, level 2, level 3, level 4 training in counseling.
Yeah, and I think, probably if I didn't have young kids and a job at the same time, I really just wanted to test whether I could learn and retain.
Okay.
And it was all online. It was just through a website. I didn't even interact with another tutor or mentor or anything like that. So I could just sort of plod my way through it and read and adapt. And having done a lot of counselling, there wasn't much that came as a surprise.
But
Um,
that sort of gave you the confidence that I can go ahead and actually
oh,
take this course with the college, yeah?
it gave me the confidence that it wasn't for that style wasn't for me, but that I was more than capable of education.
Fantastic. Well, that's, because I know some people do arrive on the training course and then they've got doubts about their ability, sort of as learners, to manage to do that. But give it that you arrived, that issue was sealed off, done and dusted. Great. So what was that like? What was it like taking the webcast? What was it
Oh,
what you expected? Were there new things in there? Some highlights?
I was that shiny new student. I had my pencil case. I had everything, the shiny new notebook. I was so ready and I was so excited. And I just felt like a sponge. I just couldn't get enough. And at the end of the day, sort of, that 5 o'clock sign off, and I was buzzing, absolutely buzzing, and that never stopped. And I just loved every breakout session, every opportunity to compare and discuss. I was probably deeply, deeply annoying, but it just spoke to me. It was exactly what I had hoped it would be, and more. And so, Louise was my mentor. And I remember the first time we caught up. She asked me a couple of questions, and I was like a rabbit in the headlights. And she's just said, calm down, you're fine. This is what do you need? And from that sort of moment on, I knew that I had that support network. And I even remember the question that she asked me. She said, what can you tell me about, the evidence base of hypnotherapy? And I just went, because I wasn't used to being put on the spot
Mm.
like that. I knew the answer. I just had that mental freeze, and I was like, I'm not doing that again. And just working with a brilliant bunch of people, we quite quickly set up a WhatsApp group amongst us that we still message each other.
Nice.
I told them that I was coming on tonight. And it was quite the holistic support around the context as well was amazing.
Highlights? What was your favorite moment or exercise or teaching or method?
I adored, you won't be surprised to hear, the CBT module, and that so for me, I really used that in a way where I could visualize starting my business. So my fear was, what if I get sued? What if somebody's so unhappy with me as a therapist? And so using those decatastrophizing techniques, that okay, and then in the next minute and the next minute and the next minute, and being able to build this sense of strategy and problem solving, that's probably something that I use on a day-to-day basis, even if it's how to get my children to eat fruit and vegetables. It's such an integral part of my business.
So
So
those
that definitely has been a
first
highlight.
3 days or 3 modules of stage 3, where we're introducing cognitive therapy, looking at the Beck's anxiety model,
Yep.
decatastrophizing, and then getting into problem solving on day 3 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and the distortions, the thinking
Yeah.
errors,
Yeah.
all of amazing.
Interesting, fantastic. So, uh, yeah, what else? So you finished the training, the webcast training, which is quite intense. I
Yeah.
think where we maybe we were doing in 3 7-day blocks. Then now we split it up a bit. When did stage 3 finish? And then you dived into doing your assessment questions, yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
case
I
studies.
I finished end of January, beginning of Feb, and I qualified by the April. I got my certificate by the April
So end of January 2020,
to
2022. Okay, and then by April
2022.
2022, you got your so let's talk through, how did you do, let's explain a little bit for people, case study process. What was that like? Because people worry about that. Like, oh, well, I'm going to find people, and how will that go? They worry a lot about the case studies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such an important opportunity to practice how you start to communicate yourself. It goes beyond just feeling a bit confident and putting yourself out there. It's just having those conversations of, oh, I'm exploring this. I need, a bit of help here. Would you consider blah blah blah? It's making yourself as accessible to people as you possibly can. And so for me, I would, just ask friends of friends if they would be happy to come and work with me. And once you sort of start to trickle the information out there and put the feelers out there, you'd be surprised how many people are like, oh, well, can I just, well, what about, oh, I've just thought of. And actually, so I ended up with more than I needed. And actually, through the college, I have been a case study for
Oh, perfect.
3 or 4 students. That is what, forgive me, Mark, the word has completely escaped me, but that is what the channel is for. That if you're struggling to find case studies, whack it on there and somebody will come
Yeah.
back. That somebody put somebody on there wanting a case study for sleep. And I'm a bit of a night owl. It doesn't bother me, but I was like, well, actually, it's a win-win here. So I can help her, she can help me. And so it was interesting. And I think coming at it from an interesting perspective rather than I need a case study, it sort of takes the pressure off a little bit, finding people that can work with you. So yeah, I had my case studies, worked with them, was in a lot of communication with Louise, just again to make sure that I wasn't out of my sphere of competence, that I was guaranteed to make sure that I was successful with my case studies, just to check in. And then with the assessment questions, it was discipline, sheer discipline.
Sheer discipline, yeah. So how did you do that though? I mean, so you sat down, what was your approach? You got 26 questions to write short essay answers to. You lock yourself in a room for 4 days and write first drafts out for everything. Did you do one a day or did you record them first? Do you hypnotize
No,
yourself to answer them?
should have. That would have been easier. But uh, no, I saw it as a real opportunity to really solidify the information. I was not using this assessment procedure just to pass. This was for me to pull together all my learning and knowledge. So you were just talking about having a bit of a clear out of paperwork. I will have piles here. So for every question, I would create a mind map. And so then I would just spark up and then I could go back and research and add something else. And then I would write it out in full and then double check, condense. And so yeah, that's how I structured it to make sure that I didn't miss any information, and I kept a huge amount of notes through the training as well. So it was chaos in here from paper, but it actually what it resulted in was such clarity, and it was a really useful process.
And how long did it? So it took you, I
It took
mean,
me a week.
took you a week to do
Mm.
wow. So you really went at it.
I was not missing it. I saw it as my job and I locked myself away. And I think it's really important as well to say that I enjoyed it. It wasn't, I was here because I was so close to doing what I wanted to do. And again, just my motivation was so high that I was literally dropped the kids at school, squirrel myself away. I was working till sort of 11, 12 o'clock at night because I was on a mission.
So let's talk about that motivation because I think that's really interesting that you clearly, yeah, you got a clear idea of what you want to be doing, I think. And was that there right at the beginning? Did that get clear as you went through? I mean, how did that how did that arise, get so strong, and how did you work with it and develop it? Because it's clear, I think I get a sense that you understand how important that is. But can we talk about that?
I think it's twofold. I think from a if I was taking this career change, I have responsibilities, and also just my own what I want to be able to bring to my family, not just the lovely to haves, but that showing my girls, like, hard work pays off, and don't settle, and keep pushing. If there's a problem, how do you work it out? And all of those things was a real driver, and paying the mortgage most importantly. But also, having been a recipient of it, I wanted to get started because I knew what I would be able to do for people. And exactly as you said, that pivotal moment I knew that was what I was committing to, and I would be able to give to people. There was no doubt in my mind about that through CBT.
Interesting. You clearly took this really seriously. I mean, sometimes when I say you feel some people, my experience is some people don't take it as seriously as that in terms of not helping people. They want to be help people, but look, I'm going to do this, and I need to bring in this much income at least because I've got these responsibilities, and I'm also a role model for my children, so
Yeah.
I want them to see this. So I mean, that's pretty strong stuff.
It was also again, just coming back to elements that come through from the training. It's anything that is any blockers, anything that's limiting. You have such an opportunity through the training to unpick them and work it out. So wherever I had doubt or a niggle, I would start to kind of adapt the tools of where I wanted to go, and also at this point just mentioning Mark Austin as well. So I was utilizing him and his training, and I remember, and I still do this, where he said, just do 4 things every week. They could be tiny, but just make sure that you keep that momentum going, so that that momentum and motivation and the modeling and everything and the mortgage, it's all the M's basically. I love alliteration. It was you laid it all out for me.
So just to explain to everyone, Mark Austin's business coach. He took our training, but he was already, very established business coach. Took our training to like add to everything, but then wanted to come back round, and we talked to him about helping other people be successful and really apply the business coaching to newly qualified therapists. And so he runs a free, we used to call it walk-in business surgery, but it's the business coaching. You come in and sit in the hot chair. And so have you been in the hot chair with Mark there?
Yes, he told me my that he didn't like my niche, and annoyingly, he was right.
Yeah, he's
And
quite,
that,
he's
but
quite, I say brutal, but he's quite strong and direct, but he's often right.
that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah.
There's no point pursuing something that doesn't have legs.
Yeah.
So it was so useful to speak to somebody like Mark, not just from his own experience and his authority, but how he creates the roadmaps for you, so you can look at all the different steps and how to do it. It's he makes it very easy to follow.
So that was clearly a big influence on you. So this getting this, you're already decided, I'm going to do this, and I've got to turn this into an income thing that actually works pretty well because I've got these responsibilities. And so that vision was there really when you started taking it. You'd already kind of decided that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make sure I bring in this much money when you took the training. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so again, through the training, any kind of worries about setting up my business, I would use in the breakout sessions.
Well,
And
and that's something, yeah.
that was very helpful.
Yeah.
And a lot of my peers on the group didn't do that, and I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, and just to let everybody know, we've looked at this so thoroughly now from examples like Joe, but also Celia, who did this particularly, who used every one of the practical exercises. The training course, if you don't know, everyone is very experiential. You working in pairs as therapist and client as therapist, morning and then in the afternoon as well, trying out new things and seeing what works. And you need stuff to work on, whether it's your fear of flying or you want to get to the gym more or whatever it is. But certain people actually just focused on things relevant to being successful in business as a therapist. Celia did that and worked through all her stuff. And then clearly you did that too. And we're really now encouraging that very, very much. And we've designed a whole process by which you can identify these things, these beliefs and behaviors and interfering emotions that hold you back from taking action on the business side, because the business side is actually quite straightforward. As Mark Austin's coach said to him, you don't have business problems, you have personal problems that interfere with business. Business is quite simple. Once you're shown what to do, you need to know what to do. Joe's going to give you some ideas of what to do, but she's also going to be encouraging you, I think, to really work out any of those sort of things that are holding back from you being really, really present and proactive around your business. So you got your qualification. Fantastic. Now, there's something you told me that helped you with that was you did the hypnotherapy for hypnotherapists script. Is that right? You mentioned that.
Oh yes, and actually what I didn't mention, Mark, is that I recorded it for myself. So I was listening, I was tuning in to myself, and I did share it with the group as well.
Excellent. Good.
And because these tools are here.
Yeah.
So
it's what I did. I recorded that script. It's a script we have on the call, Hypnotherapy for Hypnotherapists, and Donald Robertson had written it when I took the course, and I read that, I was like, oh, this is really, really good. I really like this. So I recorded it for myself, and it was just 20 minutes long, pretty much, and it would just fit. I get on at Finchley Central, take the tube, go into hypnosis, and I'd listen to it on the way in to my work in Primrose Hill to get off a chalk farm, just the right length. So I listened to it every day for like 3 months, hypnotized myself.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And also, I used to work just at Belsize Park, so I was following you on your journey there.
Oh, that was you. So
yeah, but it's there. It's there. These tools are here, not just to help us learn for other people, but for ourselves.
There's a big tip, but I want to add in one more thing to that, which I don't know if you did this, Joe, and I didn't do it, was that as you go through and you start to notice some of these limiting beliefs, actually adapt that script to some of these things. So, for example, it might be that when you first idea of seeing a client, when you first see a client, you're thinking, oh, I don't know what to do, or oh gosh, they probably don't like me, or they should have seen somebody else who's better. Maybe you can actually, in that script, you can say, and when you meet your client, you're thinking, how wonderful. I'm so interested to see I can help this person. I want to find out about what's going on with them. So you're already seeding repeatedly those thoughts that you want to have in that session. Do you think we could, did you adapt it like that, Joe, or could you have done, do you think?
Not that one, but I have others. So Future Self, for example,
okay,
I've adapted Future Self for that, and it's sort of part of my toolkit, and I can touch on this later, but one of the things that I look at is, what might wobble me. Child hasn't had a great night's sleep or is poorly, I'm under the weather, I'm blocked out with clients and I can't afford to reshuffle them, or it's just when all the things start coming towards you, it's being able to map out what I'm going to give myself in those moments. And so that would be one of them. That is how I start my day with that.
So you're preparing yourself for high stress during the day.
Yeah, life's not linear.
Good. No, well, we love that. That preparing, that kind of, we might call it relapse prevention in therapy, but it's essentially preparing for stuff that might have you revert to some sort of regress to some more childlike, low confidence version of yourself, or someone who feels overwhelmed and stressed. Yeah.
And it may be that a conversation that you were really hoping would go well within, more of a corporate setting, or a social media post or something. It's when things don't go as you would have liked them to, or want them to, or need them to. If there's quite a lot of financial pressure, it's like how to move through and move on from sort of disappointment or a feeling of failure or confusion, or it's how to pick yourself back up and just crack
So
on.
do you anticipate that and then prepare for that happening?
Yeah, I use social
Very
media.
well. I mean, because this is a classic meditation. It's called premeditatio malorum in the kind of the Greek Roman in the Stoic approach, and it is basically you're meditating on bad things happening, so that when they do happen, you're like, okay, well, so that happened, okay, but you've already rehearsed how to handle it.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
You aren't going to manifest it if you do that. It's the opposite. You're much likely for things to go well because you no longer fear it because you
Yeah,
faced it, right?
yeah.
So good stuff. Good stuff. I love that. So let's talk about you got your level five, level five. Did you level
No, I'm a four.
level
I'm a
four?
four.
Got your level four diploma, and you launched your practice. Yeah. Tell us about getting the practice started. What was that like? Some obstacles.
Well, I mean, you buy your plant, you put your certificates on in frames, and you put them on the wall, and then you wait. And so, what I didn't want to do was sit and wait. So I went and chatted with as many different people as I could. So any kind of opportunities to network, I did that, and I think being able to move your feet is really important, and move your feet physically, but online as well, and making introductions and just saying hello. And I think that's a really, really important point of being able to get comfortable with your voice, and how you introduce yourself, how you sell yourself. Because as I said, I'd spent a couple of decades in the third sector raising money for very, very good causes with some very hard hitting stories behind them, and suddenly I was asking people to give me money, and just me. And so it felt very, very different. And
And
so
you
being able to get comfortable with that, not confident, I wouldn't shoot for confident, just comfortable, just chatting and being in the presence, and just making the connections. And so I knew I sort of very quickly developed an idea of, whilst I didn't necessarily have a niche that maybe Mark would approve of, I had my ideal client in mind and where they might go, what they might do, what their interests might be. And so I went to where they might be. Um, and so yes, to begin with, it felt quite slow, but actually on reflection, it was a pretty fast turnaround. And I would offer special offers or promotions, but not that I was new. These weren't, come and help me practice. These were special promotions because I just wanted people to feel like they were part of something different in Salisbury. And so
so
then
let's just talk about that. I mean, where were you having these conversations, and how do you overcome the issue of being a newly qualified therapist and and
I
and navigate around that with potential kind of imposter syndrome stuff, that I think everyone has to acknowledge might come up. We
Mhm.
talked when I did the interview with Barry, we talked quite explicitly about how just to kind of not get caught in that and focus on what you're doing. So yeah, where are you having these conversations and how to overcome the newly qualified issue?
I just on that imposter side, I planned for that. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna feel like a bit of a fraud. I'm not gonna, it's gonna be very obvious from my face that I'm a newbie, that I don't have, years and years behind me. So I planned for how I wanted to respond to that and deal with that. And so I knew that, so for example, doctor surgeries, they can't make personal referrals, but private GPs can. So I went and introduced myself to private GPs. I met with physios, masseuses, hairdressers, and just I would say, well, you come and try, and then you'll feel more confident referring me. So it gave me the opportunity not just to market myself, but to practice
And
as well.
not nuts and bolts. How do you go and contact these doctors, these physios? I mean, where did you? Let's just spell it out for people. Where did you find them? How did you get in contact with them? And then you invited them for a free session. Was that the picture, or
Special offers, Mark.
okay?
They still had to pay. Don't forget the mortgage, but uh, multitude of places. So, for example, something that came through my door is our parish magazine, and in that people can advertise. So again, masseuses, hairdressers, people like that, and so looking at the other local, and then that general spread, a website search of who's in the area, and then going even further, social media. So approaching different, and forgive me, but approaching different influencers to see if they would be happy to work with me, which then also gave me the opportunity to think about my social media presence, which has taken on quite a few different evolutions, and I'm happy enough with where it is now, but there's always opportunities to grow. So it's sort of from the inside out, and then also looking at so that's the kind of the physical, the online, but then also looking at the business meetings, the lunchtime talks, the approaching solicitors, lawyers, accountants, things like that, offering to run, lunchtime pop-ups or things like that. It sounds like a lot, but when you plot it into a diary, or a calendar rather, of activity, and that's that again something that Mark can break down. So for me, I very quick, almost from day one, from the probably whilst I was waiting for my certificate, I broke down quarterly, monthly, weekly activities, because overwhelm is definitely on there. Never mind imposter syndrome, overwhelm will hit when you first start out. And so again, being able to use those mind maps and create that kind of movement and momentum, so you don't really ever feel like, well, I haven't achieved very much today, or I haven't spoken to enough people today. It's giving yourself the SMART objectives, so that there can be a pace, but also a real flexibility to be kind to yourself because it is unsettling when you're starting out, but also building that movement, that confidence, being able to reflect on what worked, what didn't work. Oh, I didn't like how I introduced myself to so and so, or I didn't like their response, what were they thinking? All those classic distortions that can come in, and so being able to sort of build in a very, very practical way, and also really looking at what other people are doing, seeing what you like, what you don't like. And that was a real trick or hack that I learned, was take 3 people that you like their marketing, you like how they present themselves, you like their tone of voice, you like their colors, whatever it is, take 3 people and then just see where you are in the middle, so that you get to find sort of your voice, your authenticity within that, because it can be very hard to go, well, who am I? Who am I as a therapist? What am I as a therapist?
No, and I think it's, I look back on my experience, and finding competitor websites and having a look and sort of, and I would get overwhelmed by feeling like, oh my God, I'll never be as good as that. I mean, they've done that so well. I mean, what's the point of even trying now? They've done that. And these thoughts would come up, and I didn't have any network to turn to. Donald Robertson hadn't set anything up like that. There's nothing. So, did you deal with, because if that sort of stuff's coming up, you're feeling, oh, did you deal with that yourself, or did you have a network? Did you continue with Louise? Was you bring that to Mark Austin, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, Louise is still my mentor. I don't need her to be my mentor anymore, but I just love checking in with her, and sort of mulling, and seeing what I would never assume that I know enough. So it's great to be able to soundboard with Louise. But so from a networking perspective, so again, looking at what networks were in my local area. Also, there are some very useful networks online, but you really kind of have to sift with the people you align to because there's a lot there. So feeling more comfortable within your own values and what's important to you is quite an interesting exercise, and can often be a little bit overlooked, and it can feel that, well, you're just doing all the things and you can sort of lose yourself a little bit amongst that. So being able to be objective on what works for you on the online networks. But with the physical ones, it was so, and I remember walking into my first one, again, like the shiny new girl, and just super keen to chat to everybody and put myself thrusting business cards into people's hands and things like that. And again, that was something that I reflected back on and was like, I want to slow down. Next time I want to stand back. Next time I want to look at who I want to speak to. Next time I'm going to look at the guest list and see who is going to be interesting or valuable to me to speak to with their network. And so it was a great opportunity not to feel that I'd got it wrong, but just what I would learn from that first networking. So doing all of that, but actually what I found was that number one, that can become quite repetitive. It's the same people in the same room talking about the same things. And if they're not interested the first time, then you know it's kind of a waste of time and money to keep trying to hammer the same thing. They definitely have my business card, so I knew that they knew my name. So then what I did was decided that actually what had been really valuable to me was speaking to the physios, the nutritionists, the masseuses. So creating that network. So that's sort of what I did next, was like, well, this network isn't really going to work for me. I know the people that I want, because also then we can refer to each other. And, I often say to clients, and I have like a little table down here with physios, nutritionists, and all the things where I can just give them a business card, and likewise they do the same. So it made financial sense to create this network as well, because again, having that clarity of purpose, and that clarity of strategy, again, and also just to beat the imposter syndrome, to keep that movement and momentum and that motivation. You can't undervalue how much a really great chat can cheer your day up. And if those great chats are a little bit few and far between when you first get started, that can be demotivating, and that is poison to a new business. That's where doubt settles in and comparison settles in. So again, just to be able to keep the conversations going, and actually that's built. And so the network only meets for chats twice a year, and it's grown from what was there were 4 of us to begin with. There's now about 70 of us in Wiltshire and Hampshire, all within health and well-being. And we also have evenings which are more like case studies. So we'll have
let me just cut it. I want to cut, but I just want to frame this properly, because we talked before, and you'd said, and that you had been going to business networking events, and I think that's what you were talking about there. And then you found that they weren't. These were like business lunches and business breakfasts where everyone gets up and has 30 seconds or a minute to introduce their business and da da da.
Chambers of commerce, that that's a
So
business breakfast.
You went into all of that, and then you basically said that's kind of not quite working. Let's create, and you decided to create your own networking event, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, because they could only take me so far. If they weren't interested for themselves, perhaps they'd recommend me or go, oh, you've got a phobia of flying, you're going on holiday. I met this woman, what was her name? Oh gosh, she thrust her card into my hand. Where is it? That could only go so far. But this idea of referrals, that was
with other well-being practitioners.
it made more sense. And so we've also got GPs as part of the network as well, who can quite literally can refer to us. So it's just become really valuable, but also you're then it also gives you or gives me the platform to speak with like-minded people that are
Yeah.
running their own businesses, that, you know, if it's been a bit of a flat month, that are, oh, they've just seen this on social media, so they're giving this a try. You know, it becomes a bit of a therapy network.
Because you've got two, I mean, business networking, the one thing you have in common is you're all running your own business. And
Yeah,
so, you know, and that's a big thing to have in common compared to, you know, people who are employed. It's a different thing. It's you're running your own business. So there's that. But here you're saying, but we've got something else because we're all into well-being, physical health, mental health. So we've got this second big common interest. We want, you know, maybe we always want to understand that these other disciplines, there are a touch on our discipline. So that's a really interesting idea. So what could you talk through? Would this be something you would recommend people to do in their area? Maybe not in Salisbury,
always
but
welcome to join.
but if they so could people set that up for themselves, or and how would they do that? Would you recommend that?
I think absolutely, because if you are starting to feel that you're not getting enough people through the door, if that doubt, judgment, criticism, comparison, if all of that is sort of niggling or seeping, it's a really, really helpful way of, and again, you know, you have to think of it strategically, that there is a purpose to this for your business, but there's also quite a healthy purpose to this in terms of community. That, you know, it can be really isolating running your own business.
Yeah.
And again, that is hard. And it's hard when you're well and you've slept well and you're firing on all cylinders. When you're, you know, I'm just getting over a chest infection, so I'm a bit deeper than I would be normally. But you know, when you are under the weather, when there is a bit of pressure or things aren't going to plan, well, it can be really bleak in those moments. So having, you know, the network, and we don't have time to be anything more. And that's very, very clear within the network. We have a WhatsApp group so people can say, I'm looking for a kids physio in Amesbury. I'm looking for a hypnotherapist in Salisbury. So it's just that. And we meet twice a year for networking and once a year for case studies. We don't ask any more from people from that because we're busy and we don't need to feel any more overwhelmed. So again, it has that kind of purpose and movement to it. So absolutely, if you are feeling that isolation, that need for referrals, just that connection and community, just put the feelers out there and say, let's meet for a coffee. Let's two of us meet for a coffee, and then see if more people join. I did take it another step further, because I was like, we're so brilliant, we need to take this to our clients. You know, the network is so strong, we need to take this to our clients. So I created what was called the Wellness Weekender. And so for 2 days, I had 3 different areas, sort of mind, body, movement. And so loads of different yoga and teachers, Qigong, Pilates, strength training. There was classes running throughout the day. There were hypnotherapy, mindfulness, meditation, yogic going on, and then, you know, a third as well. So it was just to showcase the amazing health and well-being in our area, which sounds lovely, but this was marketing. This was a sole marketing tool. It meant that I had content for social media. It meant I had content for press releases and editorials. It, you know, it's again, as part of your kind of business strategy that you can break down into quarters, being able to do, you know, the advertising, the PR, the marketing, having that strand running through. It was all very, I tried to make sure it was as formulaic as possible so that I didn't get overwhelmed.
So you got a system, and so what do you do? Rent a village hall kind of thing? How did you run that weekend? Or so there's some
Yeah, so
logistics involved here, yeah.
yeah, so it was we've got it's actually the almshouse in the village, but it's got the most beautiful gardens. And so I had two tents and an indoor space so people could just move and flow. I had a sort of catering company come in so they could, and it was all, nutrition approved. And did it as a fundraiser because that is my background. So that is where I feel comfortable. So yeah, but it was a marketing tool, and it also meant that I could piggyback the people, the hosts and presenters, the instructors. It meant they got to market me as well, and so I had a couple of really really big presenters. So for example, Lucinda Miller, she's called Nature.Kids. She came and did a talk with me, and the person that she'd done a talk with before that was Fern Cotton on Happy Place. So again, that was my social media reach there. And laying out, I don't ask people to do things for me. I prefer to role model that, so give that kind of kindness so that there's a reciprocation, and so it becomes less like a transaction and more of a conversation and opportunity. And again, I think that's where I come back to with networking and authenticity and finding your voice. It is being comfortable to communicate.
Yeah,
That was a
and you
long
said
answer,
this
Mark,
thing,
wasn't it?
how to promote yourself to become the authority in your area. So, this was something you were saying, that you had a real intention about this, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's
And
talk about that.
well, within, so the first thing I did was, sort of price point myself when I was looking at building my website. And so looking at what the other hypnotherapists were charging and doing in my area. And again, going back to what I liked and what I didn't like from other people, I felt that I could and I don't say this lightly, but I felt that what we do would help people more, more effectively. So being able to communicate that message out, and that I was the medium for that, making me the authority of that in my area, felt like such an opportunity. Nobody else was doing this combination around me. And so there was the real opportunity there to create this authority for change in the area.
And this combination that you're offering. So let's talk about, because you mentioned that you really were marketing yourself as offering CBT with hypnosis. You're very strong on the CBT part as that of what you're offering.
Yeah,
Let's be, and that being a strong differentiating factor, yeah? Like,
absolutely. Yeah, the CBT side is so important to me, not just because of the impact that it can have through using the tools and the principles, but also really helps you to understand the person so that you can inform the hypnosis even more effectively. So it just helped build, again, not just that sense of rapport going into that trust, that bringing in that motivation for people to come back, but actually really helped to tailor the hypnosis, so thoroughly. And so that's always been a core part of my offering, that essentially we write it together.
so you're able to kind of laser target the actual
Yeah,
interfering beliefs and things like this, and or kind of the rules they've got that are running them that aren't so helpful, and really laser target that stuff in the hypnosis experience. And you say you write the script together sometimes, is that right?
as much as time will allow, because again, it helps them to kind of I was going to say self-hypnotize, but that's a given. But it helps them to buy into, to commit to it more, that I'm not just, you know, and through the college, you know, talk very clearly about the collaboration. And it's so important to me that our chairs are side by side, not opposite each other. That this is a work together so that they do feel that empowerment for change, because the more they get that change, the better they're going to feel and the more likely they are to refer me.
Look, I love that. You're keeping in mind the business objective and the clinical objective at the same time.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a win-win.
so coming back, positioning yourself as an authority in your area. I mean, that sounds a kind of bit of a bold thing to go do as a newly qualified therapist. I mean, talk us through how you managed to convince yourself that that was okay.
It was a bit convincing, but it's all right. We can deal with the imposter syndrome. Yeah, I think you know, it's very easy to reflect back and sort of um, feel like, you know, this was always the plan all along. I think I definitely lent into the administrative processes, the building the business strategy, the looking at all the elements, because that actually gave me sort of grounding assurance to help me to keep moving again, that momentum that we talked about, and keep motivated. Um, but actually it did feel like you know what I don't want to just be a kind of hit and hope therapist. I want people to want to come to me because they know they will feel better for it. And so that authority piece, whilst it has a lovely alliteration point with authority in your area, it was actually about confidence, confidence that I was the person that could make a difference for people. And I still truly believe in the difference that CBT with hypnosis can make for people. It is powerful, powerful stuff. But that's a longer message to put on a tin. So, you know, having that kind of that, no, the authority is the training. The authority is the understanding and the empathy. The authority is using those kind of the thought distortions to understand the blockers for people to help them to get beyond it. That is how the authority settles in my mind, rather than just I'm the biggest boss in this area. And so yeah, it's the authority is the confidence in the outcome and the principles of
Tools
C.
and process and principles, but also belief in yourself. I mean, the sheer hubris, Joe, to go, I'm going. But I think it's interesting. I think that's an interesting thing. I remember watching. I was rewatching The West Wing. Really, I don't know if you watched The West Wing.
I love the West Wing.
And there's towards the end there. What's his name? Toby is saying to Josh about this new guy, and he goes, "But has he got it?" And Josh just goes, "Yeah, I think so." Has he got it? Has he got the sheer hubris to believe, totally believe he can be president? And it's just like, God, yeah, what that level of self belief. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about quite, but we are talking about something in terms of actually going, no, I am, I am here and I'm here to help and I really can help and I have the tools and it is me though doing it. So
Yeah.
it is you doing it. It's not just the tools doing it. Yeah.
And I think, you know, part of the authority, part of the responsibility is within the rapport. You could be the most confident seller, communicator, but if you don't have that rapport in the practice room, then your business is going to fail. And actually, I enjoy people. And as you can tell, Mark, I am very happy chatting. And Celia, you know, had to kind of say, oh, yep, well done. And I enjoy it, but it really does help. You know, I remember actually was training that you were delivering about the power of saying, oh, well, some people have said that they felt like this, and some people have said that sometimes they feel this, you know, showing them, you know, almost giving them permission to say, oh, I'm not the only one. And, you know, that's such an important part of what we do, is helping people feel comfortable And I think it's very evident when you don't feel comfortable in yourself. So whilst we're on this webinar and whilst I can say, yes, I'm the authority in my area, I have a very different kind of more personable approach with clients. I definitely feel, if not confident, then entirely comfortable, because I can, number one, forgive myself if I mess it up, or if I don't get across what I wanted to get across. I can reflect and learn rather than beat myself up. But also, I quite like being curious. I like exploring. I want to know what other networks are available, how I can better use my 90 seconds on social media, how I can bring in humor into that as well, because I think, certainly with therapy, everybody, motivation can be low because they think it's going to be hard, it's going to be heavy, it's going to be painful, it's going to be upsetting. Why would they pay to go and cry for an hour? So being able to get across a very human side, sort of a humor, and you can see that on my social media, where I do sort of silly therapy memes, really, where I do it, because I want people to see that I think it'd be all right to sit in a room with her as long as she stops talking.
Do you stop talking? No. So let's come back. Let's ask some questions here. One, when you started out and then now, how many hours a week were you seeing clients versus doing marketing? And I'm gonna put that in an interesting context. I told you I was clearing out a bunch of papers, and I just cleared out a massive manual I bought from this guy called David Botsford, who was a hypnotherapist. He's passed away now, and him and I did some smoking cessation work together, and he wrote some huge this is a printed manual that was like this. But in that, on the marketing side, he said when he first started, he thought he'd hang a sign out and everyone would turn up. And of course they didn't. So he got some brochures printed and he went door to door through central London, because he had a Harley Street practice, handing out his brochures. And he would do 8 hours of door to door. I mean, God, that's painful marketing. 8 hours, though, for every hour he would see a client when he started. And I always remember thinking, like, God, man, you're telling us that? That's pretty. But I think that's interesting. And the other thing, to put a context on this guy, Barry Thane, who's a hypnotherapist who shares some good stuff out there, he said, look, if you don't have a client in front of you or you're not marketing, he goes, then it's either the weekend or you want to be bankrupt. Which I think is very wise. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. How much time are you spending doing the marketing versus seeing clients when you started and then now?
So when I started, there was a lot more physical, going to see people, chat with people, network with people, just sort of knock on doors. But again, Salisbury's not that big. So that kind of became exhausted quite certainly within the first sort of month or so, because I'd go off merrily, here I go, and chatting to everybody. So I definitely sort of exhausted that quite quickly. And so then, and bearing in mind, I had my quarterly activities that I was going to do. Another one was online marketing as well. So yes, ticking the SEO boxes, which, oh God, if I never have to do that again, I will be so happy, because that's not my comfort zone. But doing the SEO, writing to people, commenting on things, the amount of time I would go through Facebook groups and somebody would say, oh, looking for a hypnotherapist, and I'd be like, me. And so again, just engaging and connecting. It was online very consuming to begin with. And so I then thought, I want somebody else to do this for me. And so started looking online at influencers that I could offer my services for free to see whether, and again, I have never asked any influencer to promote me, and they always do. And I use it as part of my own marketing, what they say.
So you approach them and say, I can see you're very nervous. I could help you with that. I mean, how do you, how do you approach it? Introduce yourself to an influencer where there's no, there's no explicit transactional element to it.
Again, I think having this mental resilience, again, using those tools that you're not gonna fire out a message and you're gonna get a reply straight away, that it might take days, weeks, months for them to even get the seen message come through. But having that as part of your marketing strategy, not overlooking it. So again, making sure that you're commenting, Harriet's a far better place to, drill into this, but making sure that my name was being looked at, and actually I've still got it in paper form, but I've got, because like you, everything's in paper, I've got an A4 piece of paper, both sides, every Facebook group in the local area related to mental health, related to well-being, and they will all have, you can promote your business on this day. It's usually the first of the month, so I need to be mindful that tomorrow I need to post out quite a lot of things.
Okay.
So again, it's just building in these dates in your calendar where you've got actions, but it takes time to find all of these.
Yeah, you've got the research element, finding out what goes on there. So you're researching for groups, you're researching for influences, and then you're liking and commenting, and then reaching out to them. But you're saying, would you like to have some therapy for free? Is that what you wrote to them and said, basically?
Pretty much.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I do. There are several that I've worked with, whereas like yeah, and at this point it's probably important to mention that I had to have my own page up. I had to have my own,
Yeah.
so that they could see that I was real. And but that opened so many doors, and that still brings me clients. And again, like I say, I've never asked them to promote me. It was never an expectation. I would never position, if I can give you X number of sessions, will you do a post for my business? It was always like, I'd love to share this with you. I've helped so many people. I think you might find it really interesting. I can send you a free recording so you can try it without even having to talk to me. Just again, it's that comfortable to be accessible, and to help people to feel comfortable to just have a conversation with you, that you're not going to be demanding, or
How many did you researched, found a list of how many before you started kind of liking, commenting, and then approaching?
again, it's that values thing. So making sure that it felt quite
Yeah.
aligned.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would, I'll have a piece of paper with a
And will you
long
find
list.
5 or 25 or
No, it would probably be more than 30. I'm just thinking of how
okay.
many lines on an A4 piece of paper. So
Interesting.
yeah, I would just jot down. But again, kind of having the criteria within that, because there has to be strategy, there has to be purpose,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
yes, our values are aligned, but this is their reach. This is the opportunity with this person, and what would I want them to communicate? Because if it's just giving up smoking, then I have to be prepared that I'm going to just be doing a lot of giving up smoking for the foreseeable future. So factoring all of
Mm.
those elements in as well, and also being mindful and conscious of emotional eating, and how kind of triggering that can be for some people. So again, just using caution with social media, around the language and how you present yourself. But I also did that, I haven't touched on this yet, I also did that with Daily Mail Agony Aunt, and she interviewed me. I was part of her Daily Mail Agony Aunt, and that opened a lot of doors as well. But that was a huge business mistake.
Why was that a huge business mistake?
Because I was so happy that the Daily Mail Agony Aunt had written about me, that it had boosted my business. I didn't I didn't build on it. I just went, oh my gosh, that's amazing. nothing. I didn't use it as a marketing tool. So again, seeing that as an opportunity to learn and reflect. So I've in May, I had a big article in the Daily Mail about Monjaro, and actually how I've been working with a lot of people who are struggling now that they've lost weight, that they thought that being skinny would make them happy, and suddenly they're feeling really stressed. They don't have the coping mechanisms that they did, and how I've worked with them with CBT and hypnosis to just feel at peace with themselves. And so again, if I hadn't have had that experience, I wouldn't have been able to learn and adapt for what to build from there.
And did you make better use of that when it came out? Because I think this is interesting. You know, people get really excited. They think somehow if I get featured in a national newspaper, that's the solution to all my problems. But from what I've seen, it just creates a little bit of a flash in the pan effect.
Absolutely. It's
And
totally what happened.
within 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be like, okay, so so how did you leverage that? And what advice would you give for people getting
Um,
featured, and then how to really leverage that? Yeah.
Again, it's that feeling comfortable to try, whether it's feeling comfortable to walk into a chambers and just say, hi, I do CBT with hypnosis, or whether it's just to send an email to say, hi, I think your readers might be interested in hearing about this. We have all the resources at our disposal. This wasn't luck, and it wasn't magic. We have LinkedIn, we have Google searches, we have people have websites, we have ways to communicate. So again, it's not as simple as confidence. It's having that clarity in what you want the person to receive, and the comfortable enough to again have that or authority to be able to say, let's talk.
So you're doing that to reach out, and then perhaps getting featured. What I want to then say, you said that you had that you're at the agony aunt with the Daily Mail, and then it, it, it sounds like did you stop marketing then, or you just didn't use what that could have given you to build on something else?
I'd say I didn't know how to use it to
So
build on something else the
how
first time.
what are you going to say what advice would you give to people if you do get a piece placed in a newspaper? How to really make the most of that?
Uh, Definitely look at where, and again, it is the power of SEO. Whatever that article is, just Google search, see who else is talking about it, see what doors it can open. See what So from the article that I did in May, I've appeared on 4 podcasts, I've written further articles. I'm waiting to hear if I'm going to appear on This Morning. It's and not letting go of that, and that's seeing those opportunities and checking in, exactly as I do with clients that I had in 2022. Every so often I will just check in and say, oh, you just popped into my thoughts, I would so love to hear how you're doing. And a lot of the time they'll say, oh, I've been meaning to get in touch. Because that personable approach, that opportunity to join the dots for people, and again the accessibility is really, really important. So just use the tools that are there through the Google searches, through what's trending. See where you can use it on social media. See whether you can take a national article and turn it into a local magazine or local rag article as well, because they're like, oh, local girl features in.
Featured in, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
you
reaching
know
out and saying, as featured in the Daily Mail or whatever, if you're going. So, well, I want to ask about, again, come back to that question. But if were you treated it sounds like a full-time job, because you treated getting the assessment question done like a full-time job. And one of my main criticisms, but correct, is that people don't treat it as a full-time job, and then they wonder why it doesn't work.
yeah.
I mean, literally, they keep, oh, I'll get another book or take another course. But no, that's not the thing. You need to focus on the marketing. So let's speak to that. How much time were you spending when you started on the marketing versus seeing clients?
Mm. Um, Probably 80/20 marketing.
80/20 marketing. Okay.
Mm.
So that's, is that it? And is that what you'd advise people?
Hard to say because I didn't niche.
Yeah.
So I made it harder for myself
Think
from
it
the
would have been
outset.
easier if you'd niched?
It's tricky to answer because I know, for very, very sound business reasons, it was a discussion that I had with Mark. And with other people. Again, we mentioned Harriet's had her niches and moved on. I can't argue that it's not brilliant, and it definitely helps with marketing. But it wasn't what my niche was. CBT with hypnotherapy. That
And
that
that's
is what.
interesting. Okay, so that was you thought I can niche around this because there aren't that many people doing that.
Yeah.
Which I think is, anonymous attendee who's going, the market in my area seems to be dominated by solution focused hypnotherapists. I'm keen to differentiate myself. There you go, Yeah, CBT plus hypnosis. There are very few people doing that. So, okay, but 80% marketing. I mean, but I mean, but still, even if you'd niched, but you did niche. So,
No, I know. I think also within that marketing, it is the free consultations. It's not yes, there were
okay,
the special promotions, but the free consultations because my turnaround as soon as I could have a 20-minute first call with somebody was high. It was, almost 100% success rate.
you could book them in if you got them in for a free, and you do a 20-minute session,
Yes,
initial
it
consultation.
never is, Mark. You've heard how much I
No,
can
no, it's just yeah, I know. Okay.
talk.
So, okay. So doing, yeah, I mean, I always remember this. Sometimes I've shared that story of Donald Robertson told me about when he was running a sort of alternative health clinic in Wimbledon, and he hired a new osteopath to join, newly qualified osteopath, and this osteopath basically hired two actors who put on skeleton costumes and then walked up and down the high street handing out free consultations with the osteopath sessions. So in 2 days with these actors, he booked out a whole like 2 weeks, I think, of free sessions, and that launched his practice.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it's just a brilliant sort of,
and
strategy.
so one of the marketing tools that I did was a free 30-minute online hypnotherapy session on Instagram. Because that gave me a spread. Because again, you can't just rely on the local geography to walk through the door, but you can reach, you know, millions of people online. And again, just being attuned and having it as an important factor on your business strategy is the Facebook ads, is the Instagram promotions, not overlooking or underappreciating the reach of those, because I knew that if I could get people to hear and experience, my authority, that they would be more likely to then book me. And that was utterly terrifying for somebody who is absolutely technophobic. I mean, my then 12-year-old daughter had to have everything set up for me because I was just absolutely terrified. But I had over 50 people join me for a live hypnotherapy session, which again created not necessarily bookings, but it generated other opportunities. It got me other opportunities to become a guest speaker for other. I worked with a lady who is she's a fashion dresser. So she works with professional women who don't quite know what they should be wearing. So she helps them to design their wardrobe basically. But that they can have the best wardrobe in the world, but if they're not feeling comfortable in their skin, it's a waste of money. So she brought me in from that. She did that so she could then sell it to her clients as a bolt-on, piggybacking. And so then that opened a door for me for my ideal client, because I'm always very clear on who my ideal client is.
Who is your ideal client? Brad Pitt? Or what were you?
Burnt out, overwhelmed working mother.
Burnt out. Really? Okay,
And
interesting.
Mark Austin said they haven't got time for you. And I was like, damn it, that's so true. So, but again, it has helped me to shape how I communicate. So on social media, because again, I like to have a formula. It gives me it gives me a kind of structure that I can rely on, so I don't have to go, what am I doing for marketing today? I do 90-second tension release videos every Wednesday on my social media because it gives new people the opportunity to go. And I always end with, if you feel good after 90 seconds, imagine what 20 minutes could do.
Nice. Nice. Love it. Love it. So a lot of different threads of things going on there, both from, offering, um, just mass offering lots of free taster sessions to just get a lot of people experiencing. Um, and did you do that with your networking group as well? And because, I mean, I've heard people do that. They go to a kind of big therapy clinic and then they'll offer free tasters to all the yoga teachers, all the staff, and all. And so for the first week or two, they might just be doing a whole bunch of free tasters, but half-hour sessions, but loads of people have now
Yeah.
experienced.
So two threads from that really. Firstly, looking at the groups around me, and again to build my own confidence in the early days, I would go into so we have something called heartbeeps for heart rehabilitation. So again, I went as a guest, and you have to remember, people are always looking for new experiences, new conversations to have, new opportunities to see what helps. So I went into there to help practice. I went into WIs thinking that they were going to be a friendly bunch. They were the toughest crowd I've ever had. And I had gasps, Mark, in the WI, because I said I folded down the corner of a book, and that was awful, apparently. So overcome it, things come out of left field when you're building your business that you just think, I didn't know that one sentence was going to wipe out an entire audience, and how you recover and move on from that. So testing the water, building my contentment with how I communicated what I do, and then going into companies as well. So doing light lunches, pop-up sessions, things like that. So there are a few organizations. There's quite a lot of being Salisbury and Salisbury Plain. We have a lot of defense companies around us. So again, that is overwhelm, imposter syndrome, burnout. We have women who are maybe being sort of overlooked in the workplace, and how they stand up to these very sort of military men. I work with a lot of Southampton University with research professors for their presentation skills, because they're so knowledgeable, but they're so not comfortable communicating what they do. So no stone unturned, but it has helped me to practice and practice and practice.
So interesting, because, there's two things that clearly come through here. One, you're confident in yourself and who you are, and marketing the brand of Jo Pitkin. And clearly this is an idea that your brand, but also you're very confident that you have a great set of skills. I mean, in the terms of the tools that you learn, what comes across is, despite taking quite a brief training, you clearly feel really competent to go in
Yeah.
there and work with all sorts of problems. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And also having that contentment to say, actually, I'm not the right therapist for you, which in the early days when you've got bills to pay, that's really hard to turn people away. But it's a really important skill to get comfortable with, because otherwise you're at risk of exposing yourself to more doubt, more uncertainty. And yes, the college can provide the mentors and the support and the peer conversations, but if you're not in your lane, there is a risk there, but there is such a joy in your lane. There is such a again, that momentum thing
Staying within
of
that
what we
sort of
do.
competence. I think it's very interesting that, if one's going to build confidence, and confidence that I can use these methods work, etc., it's quite important that the vast proportion of your cases are kind of quite well within that sphere of competence, rather than being right on the edge and stretching it out.
Mhm.
I know some people just seem to attract complex cases right from the start, which I think is it's a problem, but I sometimes wonder why that is. I've always said that I think you really want to build, work with simple cases and build this like, oh God, this works like this and this, then start to see some more complex cases and go, oh, that's interesting. That didn't work. Wonder what's going on there, rather than think everything might be complex.
Yeah. And I also think that it does build a trust with people, that if you're able to be very honest about what you can and can't do,
Okay. Yeah,
because
yeah.
whilst you might not be the right fit for them, they might know somebody else that could use your tools. And so again, they're going to go, oh,
Yeah,
do
it's
you know
gonna
what?
be this network going on here. Yeah.
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 So there is such value to being completely comfortable with what is your own personal sphere of competence, not just legally.
Yeah, yeah, yes, no, definitely. So let's come back. Let's get to some nuts and bolts here on things. We talked about the amount of marketing time you spent at the beginning. I want to come back around and ask about that, but I hope that's kind of reset everyone's brains a little bit. Like we've got to focus. If we don't focus on this, you aren't going to have a profitable business. So, but let's talk about that profitable side, because you said when you first started, there's bills to pay. Mark Austin talks about these three numbers, and I think he calls it your survive number. And I always talk it about getting the water level down to here, i.e., you can just about manage to pay the bills with the therapy income coming in, which is a wonderful, such a critical, important moment. And then you're getting kind of to, okay, that's a bit more, maybe replacing the salary you had before. And then you're getting into like, this is, you're not quite, you haven't got like a yacht in the Caribbean zone, but it's like, hey, this is really good zone. Talk us through how long did it take you to get to that survive number where you're like going, okay, I can just about scrape by and make this work, because that
Yeah.
that doesn't happen immediately, does it?
No, I would say within, I had a very, for me, I needed to make it tangible. I needed to be able to see the impact of this in the most practical way. So I knew in order to just pay the mortgage, I needed 5 clients a week. And so my goal, probably within the first 4 or 5 months, I'm cautious because I think it's actually closer to 3, but I don't want to commit too much to that. But yeah, I knew that I had to get to 5 clients a week, and I was gunning for that through the marketing.
And that's five client hours a week, or you're doing 90-minute sessions, or five sessions a week, yeah?
Yeah, 5 times 90 minutes. My sessions are
Oh, you
90
90
minutes.
minutes. Can we ask what you charge for your sessions, or when you started, how much you charged
Then I was charging 75
for an hour for
because
90 minutes?
I know, I know, right? We learn,
Can I
we
come and see you?
learn,
Yeah.
we reflect and we learn. Because again, within that confidence level between just getting people through the door, for getting my name out there, that's where I was at. And I also thought there was value in underselling myself compared to the area. And then
Was that
my
true? Did you think that late? I mean, do you think that was a good?
no, it's total nonsense. Um,
Because
definitely
you know
don't
what my advice on that is on pricing, yeah?
go on, tell me.
Well, I always say, I say, look around, see the competition, price yourself in the top third, even if you're new, because I
Mm,
can tell you, in terms of your skills, even though you're new, you're going to be right up there. And B, it communicates. I don't want to use a car comparison, but you're the Mercedes-Benz dealership, so to speak, in the area. That's what you want to be presenting. Your price communicates a
yep.
position and a value, right?
Mhm. So if we reflect on that, there was definitely still sort of uh comfort, confidence, all of that was building because I was
Okay.
still trying to understand just how to, you know, use that sum up sentence, that you've got 30 seconds, sell yourself. I was still trying to work that out. I was still not constantly tweaking my website. I was still had very clunky social media. I didn't have at that point the whilst I had the confidence in what I could do, I didn't have the confidence in how I was presenting myself online or in person. I was learning that, I was building that, I was shaping that. And then that very quickly changed. And so I hit the five, because that's what I had to do. And then I went up to 90, which was
Let's just come back. What was that like when you hit that, when you suddenly were like, okay, I can pay the mortgage doing this? I mean, that is a big moment, isn't it? Don't when you suddenly go, this can work.
utter relief, because like you said, there can be all the gumption in the world,
Yeah.
to be the authority, but if you're not paying the bills, you're not kidding anybody. So yeah, it went beyond pride. It was sheer relief that I was able to, yes, do the job, but I could market, I could communicate, there was a point to all this hard work, all the parts that I didn't enjoy, that weren't my comfort zone, that there was a purpose to it, and it had to be not rest on my laurels, not get too comfortable with that, but be able to see what worked, what didn't work, where to put my energy, who to speak to, where else to go. It's always having those reflection points throughout a business quarter, is really, really important to me, just to make sure I don't waste any energy. I've got other stuff to do.
I mean, in terms of feeling the confidence to go out there, I sense, but help me with this, that getting to that point, like I can pay the mortgage, that was then a really important. So, I
It,
mean, did you cut any cost to get to that? Because one could then look through and go, okay, I'm not going to take the Starbucks and every day. In other words, how can I bring my costs down so I can get to that point, so I can go, I can make this work? Because there's a confidence when you get to that point.
Yeah, and so again, just weighing up in a really practical sense of, I work from my home so that I don't have to pay any overheads. I don't have to pay for petrol driving anywhere,
Mm.
but then that means I've got strangers to begin with coming into my house when my children are, and
Yeah,
so getting comfortable, and the pros and cons of all of
boundaries and
those
things. Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
And even, not just from all strangers coming into the house, but well, what happens if they decide to run up the stairs mid hypnosis? Like how to just not create an environment for my children where I'm constantly telling them to shush. That's not the role modeling that I want to do. So it's, there's a lot of different things to weigh up when you're looking at overheads, and things like that. It's not so black and white.
So you got your 5 sessions at 75, and then you went up to £90 for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I could still, can I come and see you at that rate? That's still quite a good.
Don't worry, I'm more than that now.
So talk us through a little bit how the business is built, just in terms of those numbers, because I think is that helpful for everyone to hear some of this nuts and bolts stuff? This is the time for you to say, no, Mark, we want to know about the books behind you. Yes, yes, yes. Everyone says yes, very helpful. Okay, let's dive into that. So getting to that, oh my God, I can pay the bills. Super. And then you increase your prices.
Yeah, it was an accelerator moment. It was like, okay, take a moment to feel proud. Why not? I say to my clients, how much credit do you give yourselves? How much can you actually, even if nobody else is looking, just pat yourself on the back for everything that you're doing and juggling and managing? So just being able to go, oh, that feels pretty good, and it was lovely. And but then it was a real shift, because it was like, good, done, that strategy worked, and I also know what I can take out. So what do I want to do next? Because I was mindful that I was underpricing, and actually my purpose was to be that, no, I am the answer in this area. Don't go and see them. It's too fluffy. You want to come and see me and really deal with the problem, fast and efficiently and effectively. And so then I was able to take what had and hadn't worked and kind of streamline it and be able to look more into my social media and where I could hit a wider audience that way, where things like again, you can't underappreciate the value and the exposure from awards. So getting nominated from awards, because that builds gravitas. And again, it builds a network within different businesses. So I was nominated for Networker of the Year in the Southwest. And so that again just gave the opportunity to talk to people. I don't need the award. I need to get in front of people.
How do people go and get these? You see these people get all these awards. Now I realized somebody wanted to put me forward for one and I didn't go ahead with, and I didn't fill in the thing to do it. But one of these but they are kind of local awards, right? And so if you wanted to go and get some awards, how do you go about doing that?
Um, very,
Network.
very kindly, no. Very kindly, clients did it for me. I didn't. Again, I
Really
didn't
interesting.
ask for this because bearing in mind one of my networks is the health and well-being. So yeah, and again, I do think that does come from being personable and also that transaction of, oh, I saw this, I thought you'd be perfect for that, I've nominated you for it, good luck, good luck. And then it builds and it goes round. I think it would be too disingenuous for it to be shady or underhand and just frantically in a dark room writing all your own awards papers, but just creating an environment where people go, oh yeah, she'd be good for that. So I was nominated for another one that again came through from a client, and I take it as a real compliment. But it again, it takes practice to have this rapport with your clients and not even need to ask the question for them to do
But
it.
also, I think you're plugged into clients that you're plugged into clients and networks that do that. So yeah, that's part
And
of your whole networking as well. And there,
because this network can afford me,
yeah.
because my prices are higher now, and they're strategically and purposefully higher. It is that reassuringly expensive.
So let's talk
And
about how your prices have evolved. You've gone from £75 for 90 minutes to £90 for 90 minutes to
120.
120 for 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's more like an hour.
It's more like an hour now. Oh, really? You brought it down to six. Well, you got more efficient. Yeah. Okay.
Again, it's that practice. It's
Yeah,
being
yeah,
like, okay, yeah, I know what we're doing here.
yeah.
And bearing in mind my ideal client, she doesn't have time for 90 minutes. So actually my time is actually part of my USP. So one of the things I do with my clients, they still get the 90 minutes, but they might not get it in one session. So I do different voice note supports between sessions, rather than having homework that they have to take away and fill in. They can WhatsApp it to me in the moment, because that informs and speeds up the next session.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on the GDPR side of things. That's another business element to consider. But it's for my client, I have to fit in with their lifestyle and their time, and that is part of how I price and present myself to them. So it's more money, less time, but it probably evens out.
And how many sessions are you doing per week now? I mean, how's the business grown?
So I just having children, just wanting to have days off because I own my own business. And what has been the point if I can't take a day off? So my maximum number is 12 that I will see in a week. I will generally see between 10 and 12 every week. And that is my own personal choice, because my youngest is still at primary school, so actually my days are quite short with drop off and pick up, and actually just to make sure that I maintain a kind of really healthy enthusiasm for it. If I was just bashing through clients every day chasing the yacht, I don't think I'd love it. I'd feel as passionate about it.
Do you keep a fairly close eye on your bookings and how much? I mean, I remember I had my paper diary and I would like to, and how many sessions and how much income was booked per week, because I was that was the family business. Fabienne was helping me, and we had rent to pay at that point, and so yeah, you keep a close eye on that.
Mark, I have a physical diary as well
Yeah.
as my online diary because I like the physical. And every single week I will have a tick list of who's been booked in, who I need to remember to follow up with,
Mm.
but with who the booked in, ticked off that they've paid. And then I have to do the equation of how much of that I have to set aside for tax.
Oh, not talk about that, but yes, that's important. But I
So I
just
literally every week have that equation, and that number has to go
It's
away. Sad.
interesting. You might not have heard of this guy Gil Boyne, but he's an extremely famous hypnotherapist. And lots of people's work is he's founded so many schools from his work and different people. Marissa Peer's one of his students, and so anyway, Donald Robertson was very close with him and trained with him, and they were very good buddies. And then I thought, well, I'll go train with Gil just before a couple of years before he died. He was 88, but just a dynamic, brilliant figure. And I remember him saying to the he and he trained tens of thousands of therapists, and he said, most important thing, he says, keep an eye on your bookings and your income every week. Don't take your eye off that. And here's this guy, 88 years old, but he's advising people, you're running a therapy business. You need to keep an eye on that and watch what's going on. And you will need to keep marketing. So now let's ask that question. How much of your time now are you giving to the marketing versus seeing the clients?
Oh, minimal. I will probably set aside, and just from a tech side as well, I've got faster as I've become more familiar and less reliant on my now teenage daughter. But I would probably say I give it about 15 minutes a day, not necessarily every day, to make sure. But again, bearing in mind, I will have my quarterly breakdown of what I'm doing and when. I will have plugged in, sort of trends, international dates, celebration dates, think anything that I can piggyback. And then, like I say, I have this list of the Facebook groups and things like that I can when I can promote myself, and just always being mindful of that. But I have a formula for how I promote myself, that is nuanced, has gravitas, that is authoritative. It has to hit these tick boxes that I've created with my client in mind, so that whatever I post, I go, okay, well, it ticked those boxes, so it's fine. So I
And
don't
you're
have to be
and
wondering.
now you're fairly fast and efficient at doing it that as well. But clearly that's taken a while to, I mean, you built your networks, you found out what's worked, what hasn't worked, you've built your brand, and that's a little bit self-sustaining in its own right, but you still need to feed it.
Yeah,
And then you have your ongoing activities, which you can do know much more efficiently because you know who your client is. And you can produce your material in a more confident, I imagine, efficient way as well, right?
yeah, absolutely. And that that doesn't happen overnight. When you look at my social media page, if you scroll back right to the beginning, it's horrifying. But the point is to do it anyway. And actually, the conditional reflex therapy, which you've written the opening to, it there's a quote that really really stood out from his son, that says, rather than fake it to make it, it's don't dream it, be it. just do it. Just put it out there. Just see what you liked, what you didn't like, what you could have said differently, not better, differently. How you could be more succinct. In my case, it was how to use 5 words, not 50. That's been such a learning curve for me to
Yeah.
be as concise as I possibly can when I like all the words. Um, and so, it's just doing it anyway, so that you give yourself that opportunity to reflect back, and then just build and build and practice. The first time I did a video on social media, I probably had at least 50 failed attempts. So, my whole camera roll is just full of my own face trying to just say things to a camera. It's disgusting. But you have to hit that point where you feel comfortable. Again, I'm sort of navigating away from the confident, because I think sometimes confidence can be a bit of a turn off. But just again, that authority, that reassurance, that okay, she knows what she's talking about. That only comes with practice, and being able to use the CBT skills to go, what worked, what didn't work, move on.
Yeah, and you clearly applied this not just during the training and afterwards, but in an ongoing way, right? All everything that you've learned.
Still, probably every single day in some way, I will, and this is part of, the momentum that we teach our clients. It's like how to recognize and catch the thinking traps, how to go, oh, that was a bit all or nothing, oh, that was a bit of labeling, oh, that was a, it's being able to catch and recognize and think, okay, well, what am I going to do with this? So when I have the days where it's not working, it didn't land, it didn't go to plan, blah, 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 I know the tools that will help me. And one is hypnotherapy. Bearing in mind, just as a woman, hormones can throw me off kilter every month. So, it's building in not a resilience, but the toolkit to just be like, okay, today's not the day. Fine, don't push.
Yeah, no, I think you have to flow a little bit with where your energy's at as well, without being avoidant. I mean, the issue is avoidance, obviously, and so you got to be non-avoidant, but at the same time, you don't push yourself on a day where your energy is just a bit quieter, because you can't do those things that day. Go do something else that day, you know.
It's being able to see, well, where's the investment? Is it actually watching watching West Wing again? Is that actually just going to help quieten my mind, give my body a bit of a break, just actually find some pleasure, and just see it as an investment, and not write things off,
Yeah, well,
and just
I
be able to enjoy them.
just kind of plug into yourself, your deeper self. So I love this one teacher says, plug in the toaster before you toast the bread. So you've got to plug yourself in and so you've got to do that alignment work yourself, feeling calm, relaxed, excited again now about what we want to do, rather than coming out of a place of stress.
It's funny that you say toaster, because my day definitely didn't start very well a couple of weeks ago when I set the toaster on fire.
And
And
that lovely smell throughout the whole house that lingers and
well, my
lingers.
my 9-year-old was saying, this is the third time you've set the kitchen on fire. But again, that could have written off my whole day. But instead, it's kind of like, all right, well, what am I going to do with this then? Put it out firstly.
And then do a social media post on it. No, maybe not. So let's have a look here. A few questions here. Monica says, so it's okay to do an online hypnotherapy session without having done an assessment with all the assessment forms that check for contraindications. Monica, I think we're talking here about doing a sort of a group guided hypnotic pleasant relaxation thing.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah.
was it was it was tension release.
Oh, so it's
It
tension release even. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just how to sort of unwind before bedtime. So it was very, very, very simple. People didn't have to lie down, they didn't have to close their eyes, they just had to not be driving.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you're leading people in a group thing, there's a little bit of, I always often say something about panic attacks, and because I want to make sure people aren't going to close their eyes, and some people might have a panic attack. So I do a little bit. Sometimes I explain a little bit about that. There's a little bit of kind of due diligence, I think, in leading a group in any sort of closed eyes guided experience. But you're not going to it's fine. You're not going to do an assessment and check for all sorts of contraindications with each person in a 50-person group. You get a good guided experience, right?
And I think also you have to bear in mind that there was a marketing build up to
Okay.
this as well. So, because everything was around shaping the content. This wasn't just for people to just experience my style of hypnotherapy in that moment. This was an opportunity for me to build content for social media. So I was able to say, if you're concerned about this, if you are prone to this, if you've got any questions, DM me. I was able to sort of factor all this in over time because it was just another marketing tool that also meant less risk for me.
Interesting. Okay. Very good. Johnny says, thanks so much. Very informative and charged my enthusiasm to no end. I've got over in the Q&A. Unfortunately, we have anonymous attendees, either plural or one, asking questions. And is nice if you say who you are. But they asked a question, what work do you offer with physios? Pain management?
Oh, so with actually it's more specific than that with the physios I work with. Again, bearing in mind my ideal client. So I work with women's health physios. So it could be more menopause led, it may be more postpartum led, and it may be that they're actually just struggling to be heard with doctors to be able to get help that they're feeling sort of beaten up and brown. They're not confident to ask for the support that they need. So again, and that might then lead on to hypnotherapy for night sweats. And I did Louisa's menopause webinars on the hub, and so it's building in more conversations. It's creating more of that spread. So yes, my ideal client was in mind with these women's health physios, but they've got friends, family members that have a whole other range of issues that I could chat to them about.
That you can help with this range of issues. Yeah. So somebody else says, and we answered this before. I said, do you welcome other hypnotherapists? I think in your networking group, the market in my area seems to be dominated by solution-focused hypnotherapists. Are you in Bristol? And I'm keen to differentiate myself. So yeah, you're quite close to the hub of solution-focused hypnotherapy in Bristol there as well, probably. So yeah.
Absolutely. Because again, it's that it goes beyond just that transaction. If I'm happy to refer to them, there's no threat. So they may then refer to me. I want to be seen as that inclusive and open and accessible person. So yes, absolutely, I can do that. But it's also not forgetting that reflection piece. Well, what's the opportunity? How can we actually talk to somebody together? How can we help somebody to kind of decide? And maybe we both say, do you know what? Come and sit with us for 20 minutes each. And then whoever you decide, you're going to have a great outcome because it's the experience. You want people to remember the feeling of being with you, even if you haven't necessarily quite communicated what you wanted to. It's, you're selling the sizzle, not the sausage.
So, all right. So, you like the alliteration.
I do. I did to warn you.
So, but this idea, so I would like to just dive into that. This very willing to collaborate. You don't feel it's a competition. You're not putting other methods down, but also you're saying, but I am the one.
Yeah. And do you know what? When other people do, and it has happened where other hypnotherapists have said, oh no, you don't want her. I've seen it as such an opportunity of like, well, what do I want to do with that? How do I want to respond? Where's my energy to respond? is this being miscommunicated? Is this third-hand information? Like, chat, just chat. Sometimes, with one of them who was really kind of like, oh no, you don't want CBT. You can't do two. Why she doesn't specialize, you can't, master of none. And so I was like, right, oh my gosh, I would so love to show you. I would so love to just chat to you about how this works. And again, it's that throwing in the 20-minute free chats, because if they're not going to work with you, they're not going to work with you. And if another hypnotherapist is going to belittle or dismiss your practice, it says more about them. Leave them be.
Anonymous attendee, maybe the same one, maybe a different one, says, did you do self-hypnosis workshops? And if so, did you get people to fill out forms to check if they were suitable from a mental health point of view?
I did with the WI ladies. That definitely felt quite important. Mainly from, gosh, it sounds terrible, but from a blood pressure sitting perspective, I just wanted to make sure. But the great thing is, again, these are all opportunities to be able to communicate better how professional you are, like how seriously you take this. So if anything, use it as a tool for the seriousness of the impact of this work. So don't, if it feels like the right thing to do, then it can only be a good thing.
So the Women's Institute has a history of high blood pressure with their member. I mean, what was that?
It was just an older demographic, Mark, and
Oh, I see. Okay.
it felt the reasonable thing to do, but it also meant that I was able to, because if they wanted to opt in, because obviously that was marketed out that I was going to be there on a certain date, and if people wanted to participate, they'd have to receive the questionnaire. And so in order for that to happen, they had to provide their email address. So then I had their email address and GDPR was ticked. And so then I could send them that. And then it created a conversation. And then any worries, I could say, well, maybe just observe. Or, maybe just have a cup of tea in the kitchen. Do what feels right for you. And again, it's any opportunity to chat really is a huge part of this kind of authority within that reassurance and that
it looks professional as well, that you're checking for some of these factors here.
absolutely. And that's why I think it's a tool. Don't see it as a burden or a blocker. It can add to your newsletter database.
You could offer hypertension, you could offer high blood pressure services.
Yeah, and I did do that with diabetes. I had a chap come to see me for smoking and alcohol because he'd just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And through our work and through the emotional eating and all these different factors, he reversed his diagnosis. And trust me, that has been promoted because it was, and he does most of that work for me because it's not me. CBT with hypnotherapy has changed his life. And so he markets.
Great story. I think we need you to come back with a case study on that. But we're a little bit over time, but let's just follow the questions here. Anne Mallory says, what percentage of clients do you have online versus coming to see you in person?
I'm about 70-30 online.
Okay.
I was quite resistant to online because I like people, but it's brilliant, and you just see people feeling so comfortable in the comfort of their own homes. People always get the choice, to be honest, if they're local, that they can come to me in person or be at home. So yeah, it's definitely a good sales tool to say that you're online.
And do you charge the same amount for online as in person?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's your time. Good. John, you've had your hand up a few times, John Yate, and he says, I'm probably not the only person who is curious to see that if it actually is possible to create a therapy business with the skills you are learning and how it can be done. That's what we've been focusing on, I think, John, and that Joe's done that. So,
Yes, in short, John, yes.
but I think, you felt really solid with what you'd learned. You were sure it worked. You knew it worked. You used it on yourself. You'd also had some previous experience of that working, and you wanted, and you had this, you wanted to go out and help people, but also you need to bring in this motivation to pay the mortgage and the laser focus on that and getting to that point, really, really important. When if you don't have those requirements, the motivation might not be there. You might not push through some of the
And
discomfort moments.
I think, speaking to John, it's like, well, what would lead you to think that that's not possible? What would hold you back from pursuing that? What would you need to help you to feel more comfortable with this as a career decision? Because for me, it has been an evolution. And one that I really have enjoyed. So even if you're looking at it from a enjoyment and interest perspective, if you're not shooting for the yacht and this is your sole business, just seeing it for the interest in just people psychology, it's just really, really interesting stuff. And I think we haven't mentioned about CPD and just the wealth of information to help us to keep building, to keep communicating, to keep helping to people to feel more comfortable to work with us. And using the CBT that the college lays out to help you navigate those questions.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out within this how confident you are about the CBT you learned as well. And that you don't feel you're a hypnotherapist so much as, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist or hypnosis. I mean, what do you call yourself? And talk about this, because I think this feeling that you've got this really strong grounding in the CBT is important and central to everything that's moving you through this, right?
So in CBT, it's one of the things that doctor, one of the three things that the therapeutic interventions that doctors will prescribe. You can hear the letters CBT bandied around quite a lot, really. So it's very important to me that I say, oh, I'm a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist, because if you say CBT therapist, it's almost over too quick. People are like, sorry, what? Did you sneeze? What happened? And so being able to say I'm a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist, it gives them a bit more to work with. They're like, what is that? What is the cognitive versus the behavior versus how does that work? Actually opens more opportunities for people to go, you what? What are you? And so then you get more of an
And
opportunity
you
to
do and
say to
explain it, yeah.
therapists, is over too quick.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you might shy away from it or almost be apologetic with it. But cognitive behavioral hypnotherapists, it just helps you to take a bit more time. It helps them to sort of receive a bit more information. So that has been a learning for me. And as I said, with that first networking, slowing down, pausing, being like, oh, have you heard of do you know anybody? Or it's that curious approach is how I introduce myself.
And I think people are just, thank you for sharing that. I think so many people are just interested in the CBT and the hypnosis and then the mindfulness. They're either interested in one of those three, and the idea they're all kind of coming together. It's just like, whoa, this is like a whole, like, you've got a really interesting thing going on. In a room, a good proportion of people are going to be quite interested in this. Either the
It's
individual
different,
aspect,
isn't
yeah,
it?
it's
It's not,
different.
I'm a tax advisor.
Well, it's, yeah. And it's not just saying I'm a hypnotherapist. It's like, no, all these domains coming together. So uh Eva saying here, I believe using the tools we learn and applying ourselves can make us unstoppable and best case studies. Absolutely, Eva. I so much say that. The other thing I'd say, we've been discussing this because look, we put out, I was saying to Joe, we've created this kind of pitch out there that we're going to be using in our advertising, where I'm saying you can get trained and qualified in 6 months. You can launch your business in month 7, and you can be on track to be bringing in 60,000 a year into your therapy business. That means £5,000 a month by month 12. And so I've been looking at saying, hey, okay, is that really feasible? And I think, Joe, you said you pretty much nearly did that, yeah?
Yeah, but give or take a month or two, yeah.
It would take a month or two. So and we looked at that, and then we're trying to figure out how to really make that work, and what are the things that could really make that work. What do they need to be doing? One thing, Ava, is yes, absolutely working on themselves. The other thing we said is in month 7, we saw the powerful impact of doing case studies on people's confidence, real world confidence that it works. And basically, even if you're not seeing paying clients, continue doing some kind of case studies, because you get, if you're not seeing people, you're not getting the feedback in the sense that this is working, and then you can start to doubt the whole thing. So we then put that out there. What do you think about that? That you make sure you continue seeing people, so you don't go off into a whole, well, I've got no clients and therefore my therapy doesn't work, which is a false conclusion.
Yeah, it's where doubt and self-criticism, and that kills businesses.
Yeah, yeah. So even if you end up doing it on a non-charging or a very nominal basis, you do want to keep up a certain, maybe doing 3 or 4 sessions a week, and then as you bring in paying clients, but it's going to keeping you excited, motivated about helping people and seeing the tools work. Anyway,
And,
that's one of my tips. Yeah.
and I also think building the structure that works for you, so that you don't get kind of the other end of the scale where you feel completely overwhelmed, and just being able to steady the ship. And it's I'm nervous to say keep that resilience, but it's got to be a comfort level that even if there's not bums on seats, there is still momentum, and there is still purpose to work that you've put in, even if it's not being therapeutic.
Do you have a support group? I mean, how do you deal with the ebbs and flows of things? Because things do ebb and flow, right? Sometimes I remember going, oh, what's happened this month? Has everyone just something come out in the news or something about him?
Oh, that was my June. June just I'd had my busiest ever year, and then suddenly I was like, hey, hold on, I was enjoying that.
I was like, there's something come out in the national news saying that hypnosis doesn't work. What the hell's gone on to the inquiry? So how do you deal with the ebb and flow? Do you have a support group? Do you have a business coach? Do you still use Louise for that, or is it just
Yeah,
yourself?
so Louise, what I've found now is that actually within those times, and I'm conscious I keep saying opportunity, which is a bit toxic positivity, but to do the tax return, to do the boring admin, to get those jobs done, because they've got to be done at some point. And so, relaxing into that rather than going into panic, like you say, oh my God, what's happened? Being able to say within the network, catching up with friends running their own businesses, like, are you struggling? And so, not feeling embarrassed, and just being able to say what's happening, and hearing other people saying, yeah, the weather's just really nice, so everybody's outside, the sun's shining, so everybody feels happy. It's being able to take comfort in that ebb and flow, that there's always other practical things that your business needs to happen, that you need to safeguard and protect. But it is hard when you see the money stop coming in. And so actually plotting those. So I know that September is a tricky month for me based on previous. So putting those marketing steps in place in June when I didn't have anything else to do. So going, okay, what am I going to do to promote September throughout July and August? And what sort of lead magnets can I put in? What kind of little freebies. So I'm doing I just did in June because I was bored. I did a 7-day reset. So to my WhatsApp group, every day for 7 days, a 2-minute CBT tool, a 15-minute hypnotherapy thing, just to kind of make sure that I keep having an opportunity to communicate with my past clients. And I used it as a social media tool to be able to promote it. If they wanted to sign up and join in, then they could. So that's how I use that time in June. And then throughout August, I'm doing like little micro moments for mums. So if they've had enough of the arguments about snacks, if they're hiding in the loo, if they're up in the middle of the night, that they have some kind of therapeutic intervention that may only be 2 minutes long to just help their nervous system calm down a little bit and keep sane during the holidays.
Wow. Well, so creative and so also keeping
Necessary.
yeah, but but you're loving it as well. So okay, Rob says I'm very excited about the practical side of work, but the business side of things is where my confidence suffers. My own blocks and issues stop me from being successful there. Does the training and ongoing support give a good structure for starting and growing the business side? Absolutely, Rob. I don't know if you're signed up yet, but we have a whole process now. We have a business planning process and a marketing planning process that are really good, and they're very thorough. And as you work on them, your own blocks and issues are going to come up, and then you're going to work on those. Your tutor, your coach, will then make sure that you've got that on your personal growth plan. So we've got these three, essentially it's three courses. You're training in Hypno-CBT, you're working on your personal growth as well, and you're working on your business. And then as stuff comes up around the business, you put that on your personal growth plan, and then you use the tools on the course to work on that. And and then you go, oh my God, the tools work. And you can follow through on the business. So Rob, yeah, absolutely. We've got we're really excited about this structure we put together. So John Yates say, good, yeah. We're going to launch it next week or the week after. It's called the Helix because it's a triple helix. There are three things, and they all weave together. Everything's interacting with it to lead to so that you can be successful. So Karina says, would creating peer business groups through the college help? I think that could be interesting. We can look at that, how that might work. John says, Hypno-CBT is clearly not the same as two separate things, as mentioned in Joe's talk. Yeah, somebody's just signed up for us who's taken every possible training under the universe, but she wants to come train with us because of the way we integrate it all together into a way that kind of makes sense. It's not all these disparate things. So yeah, very integrative. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We've gone over time. Thank you particularly, Joe. That was great. And I could see we could be talking more and more. But I hope everyone feels inspired and ready to hypnotize themselves to have Joe's level of comfortable chattiness and productivity and focus and focus and focus. Look at the financial plan, because that's important. What's that financial plan? What's that number you need to get to? Nail it. Once you've nailed that number and you're making it work, and that might mean seeing how you can cut some other costs, then bang, you're going to feel like the world's your oyster, right?
Well, just to end on, it's just focused attention.
Focused attention. Yes,
I thought you'd like that.
Absolutely, 100%. Focused attention and getting rid of any excess tension as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, clearly you apply this to yourself. You love using it, all the tools, and I think that's the other thing. Use all the tools. Yeah.
I wouldn't do it if it didn't work.
There we go. There we go. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Joe. That was wonderful. And you got to come back and tell us this case study sometime on the person. We've got to get something. Yeah.
He's gorgeous. He'd be happy to come in person if that was helpful. So yeah, very
Well, I
happy
think it's
to
a
do
really,
that.
it's an interesting case study. I think we should do a little bit more on case studies because would everyone like that if we did some sessions on case study, had a case study a month or something, or more than that, and get to see it.
Oh,
So,
There's some yeses.
Some yeses there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's look at that. Yeah, we've thought about doing that where we could write in and people can kind of we'll have a prize for the best case study each month. But I think also,
Oh.
yeah, wouldn't that be fun? Because I tell you what, for me, I'm really interested to see how people have applied it. And it just I get so excited because they pick some things up. Somebody had picked up that, this exercise that I have on the first day where you're trying to look at all the dots, showing that there's if you focus over here, you don't see this one. This one lady had picked it up and she uses that as part of a psychoeducational tool with working with young people to show about focused attention. So where are you going to focus your attention? Because you can't, if you go focus it here, that disappears. You go, where are you going to focus your attention? So I was like, well, I'd never thought about using that in therapy, but brilliant. I love, for me, I love to hear how people are using what's there and then seeing their creativity. So, Scylla, have you got a question there and raising your hand, or you're just saying high five to Joe?
High
You're high
five.
fiving Joe? Okay. Well, I think that's a wrap there, unless anyone's got that. Silly if you don't have a question there. Thank you so much, Joe. Brilliant.
Thank you,
Take care,
Mark.
everyone. Good night. And if you've got any questions, email Joe. How do they get in touch with you if people want
So
to?
either through my website, Jo Pitkin hypnotherapy, or Instagram, Jo Pitkin _therapy. But you'll hear me talking on Instagram. You'll see how I sort of speak to
Oh,
my ideal client.
have I got that right for your?
It's a dash, not an underscore. So it's Jo Pitkin, all one word.
So Joe Pitt. God, I can't type. Pitkin. Um, Jo Jo Jo
Dash.
Jo Pitkin
Jo
dash
Pitkin, yeah.
dash.
Job Itkin hypnotherapy.com.
So
Yes,
that's your
one.
dot
That's my
com.
that's my website.
Ah, that's your website. What's your Insta?
Jo Pitkin _therapy. Thanks, Charlotte.
And so that is the underscore therapy.
Yes, Jo Pitkin therapy.
So that's your Insta. Okay. Cool. Okay. Go out there, go follow Joe, and yeah, and comment and share, and then offer her a free session. And she's an influencer now, you see.
Oh wow, the dizzy heights, right? Do you know what, the one thing when I get to that point will be the joy of switching off my social media.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's an energy drain. It's not what where I want to be, but it's necessary at the moment. So it can't be undervalued, the power of it. But yeah, I look forward to the day where I can just switch it all off.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, we need to work on that. Should we work on that? No, anyway. Love social media. All right. Take care. Thank you so much, Joe. That was great.
Thank you.
Meeting you. Love seeing you. And thank you all, everybody. Good night. Sweet dreams. Take care. Stay in touch. And hey, get your therapy practice out there. And
Just practice chatting.
practice chatting. There's the message for the evening. Just practice chatting wherever you go. It's a bit of salsa, really, isn't it? Just
Yeah, a
open
little
up
bit.
to everybody about everything, but particularly your therapy business.
Mhm.
All right. Good night. Thanks, Joe. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.